once more where that came from. Arr, arr, arr. Well, good day everybody. How nice to see you. I'm Steve the Explorer and I've come all the way from Australia to discover some of Sudbury's hidden treasures. Sudbury is a very old town here in Massachusetts, and when the first colonists arrived, they very quickly discovered that the Sudbury River and all its streams and associated bogs were rich in minerals and also incredibly important as a source of water, transportation and energy. Having come from England, the early colonists noticed probably that because of the setting of the heavy, thick bogs surrounding the water, which also contain many very heavy rocks, that the red tint they saw on the surface of the river probably indicated the presence of something that they called bog iron. Now, bog iron is a very interesting material. It's a very rich source of iron that can be used for all sorts of implements and weaponry. So they were very keen to find this iron and manufacture it. So eventually they would collect enough iron that they could put it in a wagon, and then they could take it to the nearby Sudbury or Assabet rivers. Therefrom it would be transported to the first ironworks in the colonies in Saugus. Now, as you can imagine, there hasn't been much iron found here for quite a long time. And in fact, after damming the rivers, it wasn't possible to transport it in the same way, and the iron industry pretty much went by the by. However, you can still see the red colour on the water, and I think if we're lucky, we might just find some bog iron today. So if you would bear with me, I'm going to have a good look around. This looks like a good spot. All right. What they would have to do is get into the water where it's really boggy, and they would discover heavy objects which they would pull up and hopefully would be bog iron. Let's see what we can find. Oh, here's something. Oh, sorry. I wondered what happened to my notepad. Oh well, let's see. Try again. Bear with me, everyone. Oh, this looks more promising. Oh, it's heavy. Oh, here's a bit. Look at this. This is a beauty. Now there you have it. Bog iron. Worth its weight in iron. God. So you can see the red. I'm going to take it over here so you can have a better look at it. Oh. And then I'll be able to tell you something about how it's made. Let me stand it up here, like so. Very good. Now, bog iron refers to an impure iron deposit which develops in bogs or swamps by the chemical or biochemical oxidation of iron carried in the solutions. In general, bog ores consist primarily of iron oxyhydroxides, commonly goethite, FeOOH. It was discovered during the pre-Roman Iron Age, and most Viking-era iron was smelted from bog iron. Iron-bearing groundwater typically emerges as a spring. The iron and the springs come from underground where there's very little oxygen. The iron deposits are then oxidized to ferric hydroxide upon encountering the oxic environment at the surface of the water. Bog iron often combines different iron ores such as goethite, magnetite and vugite, and is often stained with quartz. It's not clear whether the magnetite precipitates upon first contact with oxygen, then oxidizes to ferric compounds, or whether the ferric compounds are reduced when exposed to anoxic conditions upon burial beneath the sediment surface and reoxidized upon exhumation at the surface. But we really don't care about all that. All we care about is that we get a nice big chunk of iron. Now, iron made from bog ore will often contain residual silicates, which can form a glassy coating, and this will grant some resistance to rusting, as we can see in specimens that we have that are hundreds of years old and show very little sign of rusting. Bog iron was widely sought in colonial America, taking advantage of the rust resistance, and during the American Revolution was a popular source to make cannonballs. So our next step is to go and find how they transported all this iron to the ironworks. Bloody hell. Sorry, no more bog iron for now. Hello explorers, here we are again. We are now in Maynard, along Route 27 at the Sudbury line. This is an area that was very, very prolific for bogs and bog iron. And in this particular point, the land was filled in to form a causeway. And this is still known as Ironworks Causeway and extends as far as you can see. Here, iron was taken from the bogs, loaded onto wagons, and on the wagons was then taken to barges waiting on either the Sudbury or more likely the Assabet River, which is only about half a mile in that direction. There are other roads in the town which remind us of the days of iron. There's Iron Mill Road and Old Forge Road, to name only two. We will be tracing the journey of the barges along the Sudbury, Concord to the Merrimack River shortly. We are now looking further down the causeway into Sudbury town and to get some idea of how long this causeway used to be. We will be tracing the journey of the iron ore along the rivers all the way to Saugus until the ironworks there closed in 1668. After that time, other ironworks were operated in that area. Until the dam was built at Billerica in 1793, and ironworks were created on this side of Billerica. The Saugus Ironworks was the first in America, established in 1646 in Saugus, Massachusetts. It was looking for more sources of iron deposits for their business that sent prospectors out into the surrounding countryside searching for good areas. They found an adequate source of bog iron here in the swamps and wetlands along the Assabet River. In 1658, the Saugus Ironworks bought 1,600 acres of land, covering areas that are now parts of Acton, Sudbury and Concord. Hello again. We're now in South Acton at a site in front of the Faulkner Homestead, which is in an area known as the Acton Ironworks Farm. We're in South Acton, close to Route 27, just before it crosses over the Assabet River. We have now moved closer to Route 27, and you can see the traffic as it's going across the Assabet River. Now, this place is interesting to us because shortly after the Saugus Ironworks bought 1,600 acres of land in this area, they sent 3 of their expert hammersmiths to set up a forge on the north bank of the Assabet River, just over the other side of the road. They built up dams, ponds, watercourses, 2 hearths and 2 hammers. Quite an impressive setup for that era. This works produced the sows or bars of iron, which blacksmiths would then work into horseshoes, door hinges, wheel rims, nails, fire tongs, cooking and farming implements, and much more instruments and tools needed for the colonists' daily needs. The Acton Ironworks establishment lasted for nearly 35 years, and the houses were built for the workers and their families in this area. Many tons of iron bars were shipped down the Assabet River to waiting markets along the sea coast, as well as to the settlements all along the way. G'day there. Well, today we have decided to come to the Saugus Ironworks to discover what we can about what happened or may have happened to our bog iron that we recently discovered. And we have in fact made a couple of new discoveries. First of all, we found out that the ironworks isn't working today because there's a problem obtaining water to work the mills to the forge and to the splitting mill. So we can't show you what actually took place. The other important discovery we made was that all the iron that was actually worked here was obtained locally in this general vicinity. As far as the people who work here know, there was no iron ore obtained as far away as Sudbury. So that's a disappointment. In fact, we also learnt that there is really no direct water connection from Sudbury to the Saugus River, which would have made it very difficult, in fact, to get the iron ore here. So that leads us to assume that the iron that was obtained in Sudbury was probably forged much closer, most likely at the Acton Ironworks. However, our trip has not been wasted. This has turned out to be a most interesting visit. They've done a wonderful work of restoring these ironworks. After the ironworks was closed in the 1670s, it was pretty much neglected, but Wallace Nutting became very interested in the what was thought to be the ironmaster's house. He restored that and produced interest in reconstruction of colonial buildings, and over time money was raised to actually reconstruct the entire ironworks in the 1950s. And they have done a wonderful job, and I can very strongly recommend anybody who is interested in finding out more about the manufacture and working of iron in the Sudbury area and in the colonies in general should definitely come here for a visit. Just take a good look around. It's a beautiful scene. One thing that's worth pointing out here is that in Saugus it was a large operation with a blast furnace for purifying large amounts of ore. The ironworks in Acton probably was a much smaller scale with smaller forges, not unlike this one that we see here that still has some embers blowing. I'll see if I can demonstrate them for you. So a smaller operation, but still capable of refining the ore sufficiently that it could be wrought into useful pieces of equipment and tools. Oh, look at those lovely sparks. Oh, yeah. Nice and warm, too. Cool. There's some good-looking sheep over there. Well, iron is interesting, but it's not very exciting. What is exciting is gold. And I'm going to tell you a story now about gold in Sudbury. It goes back probably to the early 1800s, when the story is that a couple of young men came down, probably rode down from the Merrimack through the Concord and Sudbury rivers, and stopped and resided in a barn near here in North Sudbury. We're not sure exactly which farmhouse it was, probably the Smiths or the Levis, but certainly in that area near the Great Road in northern Sudbury. The interesting thing about these men, they were strangers, but everybody noticed they were very free with their money. They had so much money, they paid immediately for everything they got, all their food and drink, and they seemed to be having a wonderful time. They lodged in the barn on the farm and had so much money that they were even noticed to be flicking gold coins at the birds and the chickens. This roused quite a lot of suspicion amongst the neighbours as to where these people had got all this money from. But at the time, nobody was really interested in asking too many questions. Eventually, the young men decided it was time to leave. When it was time for them to leave, they were noticed to be carrying large canvas bags that contained something that was very heavy. They also obtained tools for digging. They were then noticed to head off away from the farm towards the nearby woods. As they walked on their long journey into the woods, carrying those heavy bags, no doubt this must have caused some frustration, probably even some arguments amongst them. It's not much fun being a pirate when you've got to carry all that heavy stuff around. However, They must have settled their differences and eventually made their way into the woods. No one knows exactly where they went or what they did with those heavy bags and the digging implements. But we do know that shortly afterwards, Mr. Smith, the farmer, received a letter from that told him some pirates had been captured, convicted, and were about to be executed. And he was requested to come to see them, so they would give him information that would be of value to him. But Mr. Smith, with a feeling of distrust for criminals common in those days, paid no regard to the request. And the secret of whatever happened to those pirates and their bags died with the writers and may never be revealed, unless, of course, some fortunate person should discover the hiding place. This story was related by the historian Alfred Hudson, so we know it must be true. It is also worth noting that Mr. Levi Smith later opened up a tavern at the location on the Great Road and suddenly appeared to be very well off. Here, near Sudbury Centre, we also have a family tradition of pirates. This comes from the Walker family on Goodman's Hill Road. The Walker house was built in 1806 by the Bogle family, and shortly after they moved in. Two men, dressed or described as pirates, came to their door. They were carrying a trunk between them, and it appeared to be very heavy. These pirates came from the east, and they stopped in front of the Walker family house. They banged on the door so that they could borrow a shovel from the owner. The homeowner was probably quite surprised to see these strangers suddenly appearing from nowhere. But they had money, and no doubt the lady of the house was quite prepared to help them. The homeowner found the shovel, which was gratefully received by the pirates. They then went away with the trunk and the shovel. No doubt not in a very good mood. Nobody knows exactly where they went with that trunk, but being pirates, they probably headed towards the nearest woods, which weren't so far away this time. We can only surmise that as the trunk was described as being extremely heavy, so heavy that it was very difficult for two of them to carry it, that it must have contained a lot of very valuable merchandise. Somewhere in the woods around the Walker family homestead on Goodman's Hill Road, there may still be buried that chest. As you would imagine, nobody has reported finding it yet. They then returned to the house without the chest, but with the digging implements, looking a lot more comfortable than they did when they first arrived. When they arrived back at the house, now almost empty-handed except for the shovels that they'd borrowed earlier in the day, they banged again on the door. They returned the shovels to the grateful homeowner, who then was expecting her payment, which she received in gold, most gratefully. We're not sure where these pirates came from, but it's possible that they came down the Merrimack River from the ocean, then onto the Concord River, then to the Sudbury River, from the intersection of the Assabet River at Egg Rock. Ah, mateys, our lovely pirate gold. Avastly, landlubbers. What does a pirate say on his 80th birthday? Hi, matey. Yes, pirates are fascinating people, and they have been involved in Sudbury history for many, many years. Not only were they involved, as you have just seen, with incidents of buried treasure, but records of pirates were documented by two of Sudbury's most famous journal keepers, namely the Reverend Israel Loring and Dr. Thomas Stearns. It's of interest to read a little bit of what Israel Loring wrote. For example, in October 1717 he wrote, "A pirate ship named the Widor, whereof Captain Bellamy was the commander, having taken one of our vessels on the backside of Cape Cod, proceeded to put on board her 7 men, and ordered them to steer after them. The pirates, being free with the liquor, that their captives had, got themselves drunk and slept. Whereupon the captive master, in the night, thought it fit an opportunity to run her ashore on the back of Eastham, and did so accordingly, whereby the aforesaid 7 were secured." Now, Israel Loring probably didn't speak like that, but I bet he wished he could. On October 27th, 1717, that day was held a court of admiralty for trying the pirates, and all here found guilty save one, and were condemned. November 15th, 1717, the aforesaid pirates were executed. The aforesaid ship Wido was shipwrecked against the Table Land, and 130 men were drowned. Only 2 men saved, an Englishman and an Indian. A terrible example of God's judgment pursuing sinners. And that was Dr. Israel Loring's verdict on pirates. They were bad sinners who were condemned to be judged most harshly by a judging God. In addition, on July 19th, 1723, it is reported that 26 pirates were executed at Newport, Rhode Island. Never, says Mr. Clapp, was there a more doleful sight in all this land than while they were standing on the waiting for the stopping of their breath and the flying of their souls into the eternal world. And oh, how awful the noise of their dying moans. But they are gone. Where be they? Oh, the distinguishing grace of God that makes the difference between me and them. Be thankful, be thankful. Yes, Reverend Loring was thankful that he wasn't a pirate, but he missed out on all this. From Dr. Thomas Stern's journal, July the 1st, 1816, the two pirates, Gadet and Colinet, were executed in the jail yard in Boston. And in 1832, cents dated 1814 are bought up at a great price. Some have given 4 and 6pence for the best, found to contain gold. So even as late as 1814, there's still evidence of pirate gold being bandied about. So, although our stories about pirates and treasure in Framingham are very few and scarce, no doubt there were many more pirates that we never got to hear about who left their gold in other places. So, we should all get our shovels and go up into the woods and see what we can find. Don't you agree? Lovely stuff. Lovely gold jubbly. Me hearties, oh, I wish I could talk like a pirate. Yes. Mateys. Hey, a vast behind. There's lots more where that came from. We can't talk about gold and history without mentioning the California gold rush. As we all know, in 1846, when gold was first discovered, gold fever caught on throughout the country in a big rush, and Sudbury was caught up in that rush. Many men, at least 13 men, are known to have gone to California to try to make their fortunes. Their names were Humphrey Sawyer, Hiram Burr, Haman Hunt, Nicholas Brown, Samuel and Edward Bacon, Thomas Stearns, Samuel Carr, Eli H. Willis, Samuel Garfield, Elbridge Haynes, and Levi Dow. Famous names in Sudbury, some of those, been there for a long time. We also know that the people who could afford it would invest in these men in the way of capital investment to support them in their quest for gold, and also hopefully to set up some merchandising opportunities in California. Amongst these investors were Lyman Howe and his brother Adam, well known as innkeepers of the Red Horse Tavern, now the Wayside Inn. They supported Samuel Bacon's journey to California and his efforts to merchandise there. A long legal document was drawn up showing how the Howe brothers would support Samuel Bacon in return for a share of any profits that he might make, and also on the understanding that he would help to set up some business opportunities for them. We still have that legal document in our archives. We also have a letter that Samuel Bacon wrote to Lyman Howe in September 1849, shortly after he arrived in California. And the letter is very interesting, and it shows how difficult the circumstances were for most of these men when they arrived. I will read part of it for you now. Mr. Howe, it is a long time since I have had the opportunity to write you a letter. The postage in Valparaiso was so high, I thought it prudent to wait till I got here. I arrived in San Francisco Saturday the 22nd. We have had a fine passage. Some of the ships that started from Boston have not been heard of, and some have been 280 days. All our passengers are well. The news are good, rather better than I expected. Some things sell for a great price and others low. Brick and lumber are high, clothing are cheap as they are in Boston. There is now about 500 vessels in the harbour that cannot get away. Seamen's wages are $300 a month. Land rent's very high here, higher than it does in Boston. Provisions are very high in the mines. We have on hand 6 months' provisions, though we cannot get up to the mines at a time. We shall store them, and we get them as we want. The Bay State Company have dissolved, and we have formed ourselves into messes of 12 in a tent. Labor is very high. The gold is more abundant than I expected. I shall start for the mines as soon as we get the ship discharged. I have not had a letter from you, as the mail is now 1 month behind the time. So if you have wrote me, I shall not get it till the next mail arrives. I should be very happy to hear from you when you get this letter. I shall write you again when I have an opportunity. I remain your humble servant, Samuel Bacon. So, we know that these men had a terrible time, and we also know that most of the men who went to California lost everything and gained nothing more than a bit of gold dust. Unfortunately, we do not have any clear records of what happened to the Sudbury men who went to California, although we do have reason to believe that at least one of them did in fact make a fortune, but unfortunately did not return here to tell us about it. If possibly anyone living in the town today knows anything about these men, we would certainly be very interested to hear about it, and I would certainly be most interested to pursue this exploration. Yes, if anybody knows where this gold came from, please let us know. Hello again. Well, here we are at the signpost for Skyview Lane. It's in North Sudbury near the Concord line. Now, I'm sure you're asking, what's that got to do with gold? Well, if we take a walk down the road, I'll show you. Come with me. And now at the bottom of Skyview Lane, just at the turnaround, and this location just behind me, according to the 1875 map of Sudbury, is the site of a gold mine. Gold mine, you say? I didn't know there was a gold mine in Sudbury. Well, yes, there was. Unfortunately, it was not a very successful mine and was not able to make find enough gold to be profitable. But nevertheless, it was there. Now, on the map, it also shows the presence of iron ore deposits in this area. And we also know that back in 1794, copper was mined in this area as well, but that also unfortunately was not sufficient to be very financially viable. So the mining company gave up, and as you can see, this area now has been developed with these beautiful homes, but who knows what is still lying underneath this lovely green land waiting to be rediscovered by some fortune hunter. We have come to the end of our journey of exploration, seeking the treasures and gold of historic Sudbury. And I'm sure you must be wondering, where are the treasures of Sudbury? Where are they now? Are there any more treasures to be discovered? Well, in fact there are, but not the kind of treasures you may normally think of. The real treasure of the town lies in the future of its younger generation. It is in the minds of these young people, as indicated behind me here by the high school, that the future treasures lie. These nimble minds will come up with the ideas and make the inventions that will make for a better world and for a better mankind. Thank you very much for joining me on this voyage of exploration of the treasures, and good day.